Hey guys! So yes, I am going to come right up front with it, guys. I am making this video in my bathroom. But what do, right? I've got one kid napping, my other kid is having quiet time with a bit of screen time on the TV, and I have got my dryers rumbling away, and I've got a microwave going, and this is just my life right now, my crazy, chaotic life. And that is okay. So this is where I found a quiet moment to come and finally make this video. So today I wanted to come to you and talk to you about something that was kind of an aha moment for me. To start the story off, it was basically based off of a ride that I had on Ace about a week ago. The ride was going really well, and then I went to start asking him to pick up his right lead. Now for Ace, he's always kind of struggled with that right lead. It's kind of always been an obstacle. Number one, because he had a bunch of body problems that was hindering that, and then retraining him to use his body in that way. And so it has been a journey, but he has been doing quite well with it. But the ride that we had last week, it was sticky again. And so normally in the past, I would have a horrible habit of just getting frustrated, being like, you had this a week ago, why don't you have it today? What's going on? Why don't you just, figure it out, and just basically ask and ask and ask and ask and ask 100 times over the exact same way, expecting him to all of a sudden just get it. So I was really happy with myself in the moment because I didn't do that. I was able to stay calm and in control of myself, and realize that this isn't a him against me thing. He just simply isn't understanding what I'm wanting at this moment in time. He's needing some help. And so I did end up taking like a step or two back and I changed how I was asking for that right lead. I would change a couple things. I would make sure it was, am I doing something wrong? Am I not doing something proper so that it's confusing him? So I really did take some steps back, kind of trying to, third party looking above us, trying to figure out where is this going wrong, trying to figure it out. And in the end, we did get it. We did get that right lead a couple times, and so I was happy with that. But then later that night, after the ride, of course, is all done, I realized that I should have taken it back even further. Now, the principle that I want to talk about is from Warwick Schiller. He calls it the Donkey Kong principle. If you're curious about this, just simply go and search Warwick Schiller Principles of Training. He's got a whole bunch of them, and this one that I'm talking about to you today is the Donkey Kong principle. And basically, if you have played Donkey Kong, or if you haven't, you probably at least know what the screen of the game looks like. You're little Mario or Luigi, and you're at the bottom. Donkey Kong and the princess are way up top, and you need to rescue this princess. And there is like a big zigzag pattern going up in order to get to the princess to save her. Now, of course, Donkey Kong is trying to stop you, so he's throwing barrels that roll down this zigzag pattern, and if you don't jump or avoid them by climbing a ladder up or down or whatever, you get killed and you start over again from the very beginning. And so that whole principle is basically, if your horse is struggling, you need to go back to the very beginning. Don't just take 1 or 2 steps back. Take all the steps back and really find out the core of why isn't my horse getting it. And then by the time you work your way all the way back up to the top, when you go to ask for that right lead or whatever it is you're struggling with, you're probably not going to have a problem to begin with. So upon realizing this, the next time I went out there, I was like, okay, we're going to start at the very beginning. We're doing some groundwork, and if we're able to progress to a bareback ride after, then great. But for now, all I'm going to do is focus on the groundwork. And so what I wanted to do first off, so I was like, okay, I feel like I didn't have control of his hips very well. And so I put my hand on his rib cage low down, so as if I was, to have my leg back a bit, asking for that disengaging, and to see how we would respond. And he didn't move. So of course, more pressure and more pressure and more pressure. And then eventually me leaning up against a brick wall, and he's just kind of like, what is going on here? So I'm like, okay, here's the problem. He's not being responsive to my leg at all, because he's not being responsive to my hand in that exact same area. So then I broke it down even further. I put my one hand on his rump and the other hand on his ribs so that he could have an extra bit more pressure right at the very back on his butt. and then use that to be like, no, I want you to move your hips over. And then he was kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. And then, of course, I'm doing the right side, the left side, and then I'm working on his shoulders as well, the same thing, because he has to be able to give to feeling that pressure, and I want it to be light and responsive. And so, and of course, when you want to get a lead, you need to be able to control all parts of their body. You have to be able to have shoulder control, hip control, rib control. And so that's what I really played with. I didn't even get on him that ride. Because it was obvious that he just needed a little bit of a refresher on those things, because the previous rides that I hadn't been starting at the beginning. I had just kind of been riding him and having fun and doing this and doing that because everything was going well. But then when things aren't going well, then to remember to go back to the very beginning is extremely important. Now, the really funny thing, or I don't know if it's a funny thing or an insight or whatever you want to call it, is I found myself probably about like a week ago, and in like rather depressive funk. I was feeling really overwhelmed, stressed out, anxious. I wasn't doing any of my self-care things. I was in a rut, and I almost wanted to be there. I wanted to kind of be in this depressive state, and I just wanted to do nothing. As soon as my kids went to bed, I would just binge watch New Girl, and then I would go to bed. And so there was no productivity for me, and I was in a slump. And then eventually I was able to just be like, you know what, Leanne, this is ridiculous. Let's get ourselves out of this mess and start being our happy selves again. And so, of course, you can think all those things and then wonder why all of a sudden you're not happy. But I was able to be conscious enough to be like, okay, well, I need to start back at the very beginning. And so I did an AFT session on myself. I used some aromatherapy on myself. I really started to reuse my conscious language again, because of course, when I was in that funk, I wasn't using it. And lo and behold, 12 hours later, I felt completely different. So this is just to go to say that how important it is that when you're struggling or your horse is struggling, to really go back to the core of what you do know. And even if you don't believe that it might not work at that time, it's going to work. Your core system, the basics are always going to work, and you just have to have that little bit of gumption to be like, okay, I'm willing to try. I want to figure this out. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys to, if you find yourself in a funk or your horse is in a funk, don't give up. Don't take one step back or two steps back. Go back to the beginning and give yourself the time and energy that you really deserve, or that your horse deserves, because that is by far going to be the best way for you to figure out what exactly is causing that funk. I realized why I was in my funk was because I was completely overwhelmed and just plain Jane exhausted. It's harvest time here. We're farmers. All of us work extremely hard at what we do to support our system so that it works. And I was feeling really played out. And so instead of loving myself and giving myself some rest, I was bitter and angry and feeling guilty that I was tired. And so I basically forced myself to have a rest by putting myself into this funk. And that's why I wasn't really wanting to get out of it, because I felt like I needed a break, and that was the only way that it could happen. But now that I'm more of aware of that, I can actually sit back and be like, I did a ton of stuff today. I went out and I saw my horse. We went out, we had a nice ride. I'm just going to chill in, and I'm going to have an hour of TV time now before I go to bed. I'm not going to work until bedtime. I'm going to relax. I'm going to enjoy a nice drink, whatever, right? And so just to really try to tune in to yourself and tune into your horse. So anyway, take care, guys, and we'll talk soon. I hope you enjoyed my bathroom backdrop. All right, bye.